First, Emmanuel Macron's state visit to Algeria continues today. The French president and his Algerian counterpart are due to sign a renewed partnership deal tomorrow. Earlier on Friday, Macron paid tribute to fallen French soldiers who died in the Algerian War of Independence, and he said moving beyond the shared painful history requires truth and recognition.
A moment of contemplation for Emmanuel Macron as he paid his respects to those who died for France at a monument in the Saint-Eugène cemetery in Algiers, in a very symbolic visit of a major burial ground in the Algerian capital during colonial times. Since the beginning of his three-day visit, the French president has underlined that he wants to write a new page of history in French-Algerian relations and mend what have often been painful ties.
We're constantly being asked to choose, and it has to be said. If we have to choose between pride and repentance, I want truth and recognition. We have to face our history with courage, lucidity, and truth.
Since his arrival, Macron, the first French president born after Algerian independence, has tried to diffuse tensions with his counterpart Abdelmajid Tebboune. As well as acknowledging the country's complicated past, the French leader wants his visit to focus on the future, as he met with young Algerian entrepreneurs. On the subject of gas, Macron was very clear. France does not want to increase its supply from Algeria, but he welcomed an expected export deal with Italy. Another topic on the table was cooperation between Paris and Algiers in the Sahel region.
There's a desire to reinforce the partnership with Algeria so we can work together politically and diplomatically on following up the Alger Agreement, and also to send a good message and to stop mercenaries from flourishing in the region, particularly those who work with Wagner.
Next on the agenda for Macron is a visit of Oran in northwest Algeria, which will focus on sport and culture.
We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Armen, Georgian. Armen, good evening.
Good evening.
Emmanuel Macron says to go forward, we need to know the truth. Firstly, how long will it take to get to know the truth, and what could this look like?
Well, it's going to depend, I think, on who's going to be in this historical commission, first of all, who the historians are, what their approach is to these questions. Are they going to take an original or creative approach or try to think outside the box, or are they actually going to be there to follow a kind of preordained consensus or nationalist ideology of some sort, in which case the results are not probably going to throw up anything, their efforts are probably not going to kind of bring the conversation forward necessarily.
The good thing is, yesterday he said that there would be historians from both Algeria and France, and that there are no taboos, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the opening of archives, that is a step forward, although it has been happening incrementally already up until now. But what I think that certainly I'm not really so up on, the Algerian archives side of it, but I know that on the French side, when archives have been open, not all of them, but some, what that has tended to lead to is simply the truth, if one wants to use that phrase, on a specific event, a specific killing, a specific murder, perhaps a specific atrocity. But that doesn't really give a grand sweep of history, because every historian will put together the different elements that they see as being the most important, which comes back to what I said about, does a historian have a particular ideology, and therefore will they pick out this particular element and not that one? So what we've seen from the archive, certainly in France, is light being shed on certain points in this very troubled history, but it doesn't really move the big narrative, doesn't shape the overall big narrative in any way. And those narratives are very entrenched, both on the French side and on the Algerian side.
Now, Armen, tomorrow France and Algeria are set to sign a renewed partnership agreement. What's in it exactly?
Well, there's going to be a focus, I mean, as we heard in Selina Sykes' report there, really a focus on the future rather than the past. So this was the very various points there were the subject of talks between Macron and President Tebboune of Algeria late into the night yesterday. They were focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship, on digital innovation, on cooperation in all kinds of areas, sports, arts, culture, archaeology, science, crucially, and visas, of course. That is essential, because if, say, a young Algerian wants to come to a famous French scientific institution, then mobility has to be increased. If French researchers want to go and do something in Algeria, mobility has to be improved. So they've been talking about immigration as well as part of this whole conversation.
Armen, thank you very much for that.
Thank
Armen
you.
Georgian there.